This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Hi, welcome to the regular Police Commission meeting for January 2022. My name is Larry Lazaroff, Chairman of the Commission. To my left is Robin Wilson, Vice Chairman. To my right is Commissioner Mark Calafiore, our Secretary. To his right is Commissioner Mead, and absent tonight is Commissioner Bob Hannon. Tonight's a busy night. The first order of business is going to be the table of organization, which Mr. Frieda, our First Selectman, will step up and do for us, please.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lazaroff, and it's a great pleasure to be here. So for those in the audience and those watching on TV, every 2 years after the municipal election cycle here in North Haven, the First Selectman of the town has to go around and do the table of organization on all the boards and commissions, both elected and appointed. So I'm here tonight, I'm about 3/4 of the way through the process with all the elected boards and all the appointed boards. I'm here tonight to have 3 orders of business, or to conduct 3 orders of business. And the first order of business is to have this commission elect a chairperson for the commission. The second order of business is to have a nomination and an election for the vice chair. And then lastly, the secretary of this commission. So without further ado, before we get into the business of the meeting, I'd like to ask this group for a nomination for chairperson of the police commission here in North Haven. Is there a nomination?
There is. I nominate Larry Lazaroff as the chairman. I was going to call you the chief. Chairman of the police commission.
All right, so we have a nomination by Robin Wilson. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second, Mark Calafiore. Is there any discussion? Are there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Lazaroff, thank you for your continued service. We
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, second order of business is to ask for a nomination for the vice chairperson of this commission. Is there a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Robin Wilson as our Vice Chairman for the Board of Police Commissioners for Town of North Haven.
All right, we have a nomination for Robin from Mr. Lazaroff. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Mr. Alden Mead, there's a second. Any other discussion? Any other nominations? All right, hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion and nomination passes. Robin, thank you, congratulations, and thank you for your service. And my last order of business this evening is to ask for a nomination for the secretary of this police commission. Is there a nomination?
I'm happy to nominate Mark Calafiore as the secretary of the commission.
Okay, we have a nomination for Mr. Calafiore. Is there a second?
I second that nomination.
Second by the chairman, Mr. Lazaroff. Any other discussion? Any other nominations? All right, hearing none, we'll call for that vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Mark, thank you for your service. Alden, thank you for your service. Bob Hannon, if you're watching, wherever you are, thank you for your service. This commission, ladies and gentlemen, does an outstanding job working with one of the finest, if not the finest, and of course I'm biased, police agencies in the state of Connecticut. And I happen to sit on POST, Police Officer Standard Training, so I see a lot of them. This organization, working with this commission, working with the town, is just simply outstanding, and I thank the commission, and I thank every single police officer in North Haven for their efforts. We appreciate you keeping the citizens safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frieda. Next order of business is the swearing in of Colin Ahern. So Colin, why don't you step up, please? So I'd like to just say that the Ahern family has a long history of public service and policing especially. I believe there were 5 police officers before you.
Yes, sir.
And ranging from chief all along down the ranks.
Yes,
so it's quite impressive, the Ahern family. We appreciate the service of your family, and we're happy you're here.
Thank you, sir.
That being said, I ask you to raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear that
I solemnly swear that
I will bear true faith and allegiance to
I will bear true faith and allegiance to
the United States of America
United States of America,
and the state of Connecticut.
and the state of Connecticut.
I will support the Constitution thereof.
I will support the Constitution thereof.
I will faithfully and impartially
I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform
discharge and perform
all duties incumbent upon me
all duties incumbent upon me
as a police officer of the town of North Haven.
as a police officer of the town of North Haven.
I agree to obey and be bound
I agree to obey and be bound
by such rules and regulations
by such rules and regulations
as are or may be made
as are and may be made
from time to time
from time to time,
established by the Board of Police Commissioners.
established by the Board of Police Commissioners.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Who would like to pin the badge?
My father, please.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great. Good job. At this time, we're going to take a short recess for photos, and then we'll resume our meeting. Okay, we are now back in session after having swearing in, Colin Ahern. So I'd like to make a motion for approval of the minutes of November 16th, 2021 meeting, both regular and executive sessions.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Mr. Secretary, any correspondences?
Mr. Chairman, we have three. So we'll start with the first one here. This is the Chief Glenn from the Polino family. Apparently, her brother was in a pretty bad motorcycle accident back in October, and she wants to thank Officer Ferrucci, Lieutenant Thorpe, and Detective Capazzo for their help, their kindness, and the investigation that they did. So they're very happy with those three officers, or two officers and one detective, I should say. So the second is from looks like the Lundells family, and they want to thank Officer Bianchi and Officer Ferrucci. Thanks for responding to 38 Pine River Road on October 27th for our father's passing. Special thank you to the officers I just mentioned, Officer Bianchi and Ferrucci, for their compassion, their empathy, and their professionalism. So, good job, guys. And lastly, this looks like it's from Mrs. Jane Ellis, and she is on the executive board of the Connecticut Cancer Foundation, and she wants to thank basically the entire police department, but in particular Officer Cantil for spearheading the No Shave November. So good job to Officer Cantil for taking point on this, and to all the police officers. And it looks like she wrote like a little postscript note. It looks like, from what I can see, it says bravo to the $6,300 or $6,335 raised. You guys are all awesome. So it looks like the North Haven Police Department may have raised over $6,300 for No Shave November for the Cancer Foundation. So thank you, and that is it.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. For Chairman's report, I'd like to take a moment and discuss a loss we had in the department. We had a Detective Ed Murphy, a 28-year veteran of the department. I'm sure Chief will get into this also in his report, who did pass away. We also lost our Director of Finance for Town of North Haven, Mr. Ed Swinkowski. So these two gentlemen would like to take a moment of silence, please, in their honor. Thank you. I'd also like to mention that Captain Ed Remington did retire this past year, and I'm sure the Chief will get into that as well. So we wish him success and happiness in his retirement, and we thank him for his service also to the town of North Haven. There was a pension board meeting supposed to have taken place last week. It was postponed, so when it's rescheduled, I will report on that as well. I'd like to remind the residents of North Haven to please, when they're walking, running, whatever they're doing, especially early morning and late evening, to wear something bright, because it's very difficult to see you. I leave for work early myself, as I say each month, and it's hard to see people when they're doing their exercise or walking their dogs, and it'd be very helpful and much more safe if we all just paid attention, just wore something bright or a flashlight or something. I'd also like to remind everybody that we should lock your doors, your cars, your sheds, because we can help solve the problems that we're having, that all communities are having with break-ins, if we lock our vehicles and our homes, as we should. They're not looking to make noises. They're looking to take an opportunity and take advantage of it. So please lock your homes and your cars. That being said, I will pass this now over to the chief for his report.
Thank you, and thank you for acknowledging Detective Murphy's passing. You know, whenever you lose a member of a professional family, it's a big loss, and he certainly was. The showing at his services was great, as well as acknowledging Sir Swinkowski's passing. You know, he, over the past few years especially, has provided great advice and guidance for me as an administrator, and he's a big loss, not only as a friend, but certainly as a department head here in North Haven. Once again, we'd like to congratulate our newest police officer, Colin Ahern. We hope to have an academy seat in the Milford Satellite Police Academy in April, which he'll attend. Between now and then, he'll be here in-house doing some administrative training and onboarding. We have hundreds of policies and general orders that he needs to get up to speed on, as well as understanding and learning the operation here in-house. So it's a good opportunity to kind of bring him up to speed locally before he goes off to the police academy. So once he graduates from the police academy, he can hit the ground running with field training and get out on his own. We'd expect the graduation for that police academy to occur in October of this year. After 12 weeks of field training here in North Haven with our training officers, I would put him on the road by himself this time next year. So January, February 2023 highlights how long it takes to onboard a police officer opposed to some other professions, especially here in town. So there is a big importance on funding these positions, hiring these officers as efficiently as possible so that we can get more police out on the road and serving our public. In terms of the budget report, our budget is currently at 54.4% expended. That puts us under our self-imposed limits. So we're in good shape, and that takes into account the uptick in overtime that we anticipated and we saw in late 2021 going into January of this year. And that includes the anticipated holiday vacations that we have to backfill to support our patrol functions. What we did not anticipate is the impact of COVID. Around the holiday time, we had over 20 staff members out, anywhere from 1 to 10 days with COVID-related issues, whether it was symptoms, positive tests, or exposure. So that impacted our overtime line dramatically. And as anticipated, going into that December time frame with things loosening up and having more training opportunities, our training line as it relates to overtime was higher than normal. We talked about the virtual training, that was 8 hours for every officer, and that includes use of force training, decision-making, de-escalation training, things that are very timely right now. We had 5 or 6 officers go through a 40-hour recertification class in December that was hosted here 4 months in a row, gave us a chance to highlight our building, as well as provide good training for the region, not just our own officers. Above and beyond that training, we had our typical 2 days a month for our SWAT team. And just to touch on that, you may have seen in the media today, the South Central Regional SWAT team responded to the town of East Haven for an armed barricaded subject. They did a great job. It was resolved peacefully and safely. There were no injuries reported. I highlight that because we have a number of officers assigned to that team, but also one of our lieutenants, Joe Wozniak, is the commanding officer of that team, as you all know, and they all do a great job. In December, we also held department-wide use of force training that coincided with our firearms training. The use of force training it's always important, but it was even more important this year as the state has changed the model policy in collaboration with the Police Accountability Bill, where there were some substantial changes to the way we do things moving forward. Being a CLIA accredited agency, we were ahead of the game as far as what was in our policies and general orders, as well as the philosophy that our officers take to use of force and de-escalation. So we were in good shape, but it did take a number of training hours out of our overtime budget to facilitate that. As you know, we've received our budget making schedule for the next fiscal year. We are halfway through that. The Finance Department and Mr. Frieda has our budget request. Our budget workshop is still scheduled for February 16th. The schedule says 7:30, but hopefully we'll get on earlier than that. So as always, I appreciate your presence there. I think the team effort and the support that you show for our agency, the Deputy Chief, and my presentation goes a long way. Late last year, we were awarded a $35,000 grant for crime suppression. We targeted our neighborhoods to address stolen vehicles and vehicle break-ins as we transition towards the holiday season. We changed that target to more of a commercial district target, the plazas on Washington Avenue as well as Universal Drive for the shopping season. So that went well. We spent just about every dollar of that $35,000 grant, so that was well planned by our supervisors and our command staff. We used approximately $8,000 worth of grant funding to target distracted driving over the holiday season. That's always well received by the public and appreciated. And we recently were awarded a $25,000 grant. This is our JAG grant for 2022. And we have earmarked that funding for crime suppression moving forward as we try to onboard more police officers for deterrent and response. We're going to use crime suppression funding for overtime positions to get more officers out there, as well as community outreach. And as we deal with the uptick in the COVID rates through the holiday season, luckily they're going down now, but next couple months we can't predict what they're going to be, so that community outreach effort will be determined when appropriate. For the traffic report, we have no new requests from the public this month, which is always a pleasant thing. But just an update over the last few months of last year, we had a number, several dozen street signs that were stolen in North Haven. So those signs have all been replaced. Our traffic maintenance officer.
Yeah, I actually meant to ask you about that.
Sure.
The Sugar Hill sign was not replaced as of, I think, yesterday. You just look into that?
Sure, I'll check with our traffic sergeant tomorrow.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There were several dozen that were stolen. Hopefully that's not a new one.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just driving by. It's my neighborhood, you know, full disclosure. So I know I want everybody to get their signs back. But I was just driving the other day and I was like, oh, I think it's gone. I don't know if it was replaced and then taken again, but it was down as of yesterday or the day before. So
I appreciate that.
if you could take care of that. Sugar Hill.
Look into it tomorrow.
Thank you, Chief.
Our traffic maintenance person saved us some money instead of ordering new signs. He's pretty crafty when it comes to making signs, so that was a cost-saving factor. But like I said, there were dozens of signs. What was new is the bolt system that we installed these signs with. It's a anti-temper-proof bolt, so it's not just a typical screwdriver to remove them. So hopefully we'll deter or eliminate any more thefts in the future. In terms of new personnel, we're currently funded for 53 full-time police positions. Colin Ahern, who's sworn in tonight, makes 51, so we have 2 more to hire. We currently have applications out for certified lateral positions. That closes the end of this month. We'll transition into internal interviews with those individuals and determine how to move forward and bring those individuals, if they qualify, in front of the Board of Police Commissioners for interviews. The Deputy Chief is working with the South Central Criminal Justice Agency to facilitate a recruit level testing process. Hopefully in the next few weeks we'll have dates for that. We'll open that up for recruits, and again, once we have a written test, a physical test, and an oral board score for those individuals, we'll bring them in-house for interviews and hopefully get those folks in front of you guys for interviews for potential additional offers. Again, we have slated at least, not confirmed, but we hope for at least 2 positions in the April Guilford Satellite Academy. Requested 2 seats in the July Post Academy, the traditional academy up in Meriden, and we can extend that out to the September class also. So onboarding of new personnel has been a process we've been dealing with for over a year, and we're going to deal with for some time moving forward. But hopefully we'll have some recruits and/or certified officers to come before you soon. Just to touch on some recent crime we've been dealing with and investigating. The July 17th homicide from last year is an ongoing investigation. Investigators have put in hundreds of hours of investigative work into that, between the evidence processing and working with our state, local, and federal partners, processing evidence and conducting interviews, seizing and analyzing hundreds of hours of surveillance video. They're doing a great job. I would anticipate an arrest in that case. I'll go out on a limb and say that, but they're doing an excellent job with that. In December of last year, we received threats to some schools in town. Aces Mill Road School received a threatening email, and this is right around the same time that many schools in the area were receiving threats. It became a trend at that time. Investigators were able to identify the student and make an arrest in that case. At the North Haven High School, a student created a social media account that created some alarm. The name of the actual social media account was consistent with accounts throughout the area that were making threats. In this specific North Haven account, there were no threats made, but because of the alarm, we investigated it. We identified the North Haven High School student who created the account, met with the student and the parents, but there was no arrest made because there was no threat. Recently, our Investigative Services Division worked with authorities in Florida. There was a victim business in Florida that had checks fraudulently cashed in North Haven for over $50,000. Our investigators seeked out search warrants and served those search warrants, identified a suspect, a resident out of New Haven, and recently made an arrest in that case. That was a job well done. In December of 2021, we had a robbery. It was a carjacking of a Washington Avenue gas station. A young woman was preparing to get some gas for her vehicle. Several suspects approached her with a handgun, took her vehicle. That vehicle was recovered in Fairfield. Arrest was made out in Fairfield of a number of juveniles, and we are pursuing arrest warrants for those individuals for the robbery that occurred in North Haven. Also in December, we had a stolen vehicle from a driveway of a residence on the west side of town. Several suspects pulled up in a stolen car out of East Haven. They stole a car from the North Haven driveway. As they fled the area, they crashed. We were able to detain and arrest a female juvenile in that stolen vehicle. Working with East Haven detectives, our detectives, and West Haven detectives, we were able to all make arrests of one adult and 3 juveniles that were involved in those 2 stolen vehicles. And as I try to do every month, to give some perspective on year-to-date numbers, just to change it up this month as we have an entire year looking back. These numbers are for 2021 compared to an average of the previous 5 years. So not to go through every single year. Calls for service, so these are calls that our officers go on, whether it's 1 at a time or 5 at a time. It's every single call for service we go on. We responded to 28,900 calls last year. That's a 27% increase from the average of the previous 5 years. Overdose calls last year was 18% higher than the average previous 5 years. Vehicle burglaries was down, and I think that has a large part to do with, I'd like to say, our efforts, but as well as educating the public on what to do, as the chairman tries to do every month, just simply locking your vehicles and making efforts that we could all control. Those are down 35% last year compared to the previous 5 years. Stolen vehicles, however, are up 40% compared to the average of the last 5 years. Mental health calls, whether it's suicide or calls that we have to intervene and get these folks to the hospital for treatment, those are up 10% compared to the average of the previous 5 years. And thefts of catalytic converters. Last year, they're way up compared to the previous 5 years, up 45%. So all calls for service are up, most categories are up, and most crime categories are up. For the Benary Scholarship, I have one request from Captain Andrew Stavridis. It's for a graduate level course at the University of New Haven. So just looking for a motion and possibly a vote on that request.
Okay, do I have a motion to grant the Benary Scholarship?
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And we were working with the deputy chief, and Captain Sterlides has been working with our emergency management director, the fire chief, to facilitate a home test distribution for COVID tests as well as masks, a give out of masks. Excuse me. The latest that I heard is that's going to be postponed, but there will be some announcements made soon as far as when and how that's going to be facilitated. As you can imagine, with thousands and thousands of households in North Haven, to have it at one location would be problematic. Even to have it at multiple locations to staff those areas and keep it safe, it's going to be a lot of logistics and planning involved. But we'll get that information out via our social media, the town social media, Mr. Frieda's Everbridge phone calls and emails that people can register for on the Town of North Haven website. And that information should be out in the next few days. As the Commissioner noted in correspondence, we participated in No Shave November and raised over $6,300. It's Officer Cantelli who was spearheading that effort.
Did I mispronounce his name again?
Very much so.
What did I say? Cantil?
Yeah,
It was so
something
bad.
along those lines, yes.
Officer Cantelli is
Just put the first names, because I know how to say Alan.
I'll add that. Officer Alan Cantelli is one of our traffic
Cantilli,
officers.
I said. Okay.
Does a great job with interacting with our community and a number of different things, and he did a great job. He wasn't by himself. He organized it, and we had a number of officers who did an awesome job raising money for a great cause. So much so that we did double down in December. We extended the facial hair exemption from our policy throughout December, so I think it was well received, something we'll certainly think about doing, at least in the future. Officers also organized our annual toy drive. Officer Sudak, it's Steven Sudak, spearheaded that effort. But again, he had a good team that put a lot of time and effort into that, and I think some of the commissioners walked through the room that had the toys, and it was pretty impressive.
Very impressive.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was great to be able to help out so many families. Other than that, all I have is a few personnel issues for executive session.
Okay. Any questions, comments for the chief, deputy? Nothing?
You guys did a great job getting us through the holidays with a lot of obstacles with COVID situations. The entire department should be applauded for that, so thank you.
Great. Okay, can I make a motion? Can I hear a motion, please, for adjournment to go into executive session for personnel matters?
Make that motion for adjournment.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we are back now in open session after having been in executive session. During that executive session, we discussed having a retiree, Captain Ed Remington, to the position of supernumerary. So can I entertain a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to appoint recently retired Captain Ed Remington as a supernumerary with the North Haven Police Department.
Okay, is there a second?
I will second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any further business? Okay. With that, I'd ask for a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the Town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.